Live from Orlando, Florida, you're listening to The Sports Scene with Jesse Ough.
Oh, smile at the sun and call me Betsy. Yep, it's me, Jesse Ough. Welcome, everyone, to The Sports Scene on iHeartRadio, iHeartRadio Podcasts, and YouTube, presented by First Bet and Sports Fluent Media. We've got a great show for you. Our special guest is always one of my favorite people to talk to. He is the race announcer at Gulfstream Park, who can be heard on NBC Sports, on TVG, and on FanDuel TV. My man, Pete Aiello, joins the show in about 15 minutes. But first, please welcome back our dynamic duo of In-N-Out Burger and Animal Fries. And you all know who I'm talking about. My favorite color analyst, Mr. Alvin Delvey. And guess who else is here? The resident couch correspondent, Max Ronquillo, is back, and he's definitely ready to get after Alvin today. So glad to have you both with me. And before we get into our top 5 sports stories for the week, you know I have one question for you. Max, I somehow think you would probably get this right again. You got it right 2 weeks ago when you guessed where were fortune cookies made, so we're going to start with Alvin again. Alvin, the question is, on average, what is the thing that Americans do 22 times in a day?
Gulp.
I mean, we probably gulp a little bit more, depending on, the type of person, whose bed you're in and whatnot. But anyways, Max.
Whoa!
Max. So that was incorrect. Max, what you got?
I'm between two.
Okay.
But I guess speaking of two, I might have to just rip it, so fart.
No, incorrect. That was a good guess, though. What was your other guess?
Touching your face.
That's a little bit more. But on average, we open the fridge. Americans, specifically. Americans open the fridge 22 times in the day.
Big backs.
Does that make sense, Max?
I guess.
Like, in the grand scheme of everything, I feel like I open the fridge probably 22 times in a day. I'm a hungry boy. Okay, our top 5 sports stories. We're going to start off with number 5. Let's go into the NHL playoffs. I don't want to jinx it, but I actually don't think I have that much power. So it's been 30 years since the Rangers have won the Stanley Cup, but everyone who is in New York and who is a hockey fan is kind of starting to pinch themselves because could this be their year? I don't know, but it's starting to look like it. The Rangers won again on Thursday night, holding off a Hurricane comeback with Artemi Panarin's lamp-lighting redirect 143 into overtime. That's an unblemished 7-0 record in the postseason for New York. They've won 6 of those 7 games by 2 goals or less. Talk about gutsy, including back-to-back overtime games this week. The Rangers are just straight up refusing to lose. So then out west, the Stars held a 4-0 lead in the third period against the Avalanche, but we all saw what happened in Game 1. The Avs overcame a 3-0 deficit in Game 1 on Tuesday, and they scored 3 unanswered again last night. It wasn't enough this time, though. The Stars held strong and got the insurance open netter from Esa Lindell, and Miro Heiskanen led the Stars with 2 goals, and Dallas squared up the series. So Stanley Cup playoffs is kind of going crazy right now. We're going to talk about this a lot more with our Sports Fluent Media hockey analysts coming up in the next few weeks because we got to dive into this thing a little bit more than we can right now because we got to move on to our number 4 sports story. Let's go into some WNBA news, Alvin. This one is some really good news, actually. The WNBA is implementing a league-wide charter flight program starting in the 2024 season. This is a major development for the players' well-being and reflects the WNBA's financial growth. The program is supported by the Players Union and Delta Airlines and comes after the WNBA secured a significant investment, $75 million, to improve the league's operations. And it's kind of cool that this is coming on the back of, Caitlin Clark entering the WNBA. She seems to be the biggest sports story, not just in the WNBA, but in all of sports. I have never seen WNBA preseason games on my Twitter X feed until this year when Caitlin Clark is hucking up threes from half court. And, she honestly should be saying, hey, here you go. You're welcome. By the way, one way you can all support the WNBA is getting the WNBA League Pass. Alvin and I have it. We will pretty much be watching a majority of these WNBA games on our TV, so we're excited for that. It's going to be a great summer of basketball. Okay, let's get into our number 3 sports story, some MLB stuff for you, Alvin and Max. Yeah. By now, you've probably heard that Paul Skeens is officially joining the show. The Pirates' number 1 pick in last year's summer draft is one of the best collegiate pitching prospects in over a decade. He stands at 6'6" and 245 pounds. This is a big hoss. And he boasts a weaponized right arm that should instantly boost Pittsburgh's rotation. He's 21 years old and an LSU product, and he torched AAA batters this year, recording a .99 earned run average with 45 strikeouts and 27-plus innings before getting the call-up on Wednesday. That call tells you everything you need to know. What are you thinking about this call-up, Max?
Yeah, I mean, for people like Alvin, .99 ERA is insane, right? That's 1 run a game. He's striking out a batter and a half pretty much every inning. And, I mean, this guy, he was made to be a baseball player and made to be a great baseball player. In college, he came up as a catcher, batting .440, hitting jacks, right? I mean, and then he catched and pitched. I mean, so you're not only just catching, throwing 100 pitches back to the pitcher a game, but then a few days later, you're going to go on the mound, throw 100 miles per hour, throwing 100 pitches a game. So this guy was made to be elite. I think he came up playing for Navy or some Army school, entered the transfer portal, then played at LSU, won a championship, got drafted less than a year later in the show. This guy's going to be a dog. Even before doing a little bit of research on him, he reminded me of Steven Strasburg when he came up. It was funny how Jesse said a decade ago. That's pretty much when Steven Strasburg came up, and his first team that he ever pitched against, Steven Strasburg, was the Pirates. And so now it's like this really full circle moment where the Pirates are getting an absolute dog. It not only does he has the ability to throw 100 miles per hour, I think he's throwing at more 100 mile per hour pitches than any other pitcher, minor leagues, major leagues. And so he's going to be absolutely electric as a starter. He also has wipeout stuff when it comes to just any other pitch that he has in his arsenal. So this guy is going to be an absolute elite pitcher. And we can only see how far he can go. Even the Pirates are like, hey, we're an outcome-focused team when it comes to the strategy of keeping him in the game. As long as he pitches well, we're going to be great. If he gets injured, the game's the game right now in the MLB when you're throwing 100 miles per hour. And so I'm excited to see what he's able to do for the Pirates. They're still a trash team, but it's awesome to see great pitchers come through. Yeah, terrible team, whatever. Buckeyes, yep. It's who they are, but, they've had great pitchers come through their program, right? Garrett Cole. Now they have this Paul Skeens guy. And he's like I said, I haven't been this excited over a pitching prospect since Steven Strasburg. And I remember watching his debut as a kid when he went 6.2 innings, struck out 14. It was absolutely electric. And that's what this guy's going to be in the MLB.
So he was the quickest call-up in 35 years, man.
Mm-hmm.
Skeens is just 307 days moved from his number 1 draft pick last summer. That marks the fastest turnaround from the top overall to major league introduction among the last 35 number 1 picks. That's incredible. So let's move into some other baseball news real quick. I wanted to talk about Shota Imanaga, who is having an amazing start to his career for the Cubs, and he continued that on Tuesday against the Padres at Wrigley Field. Hopefully, maybe we can go see a Padres game at Wrigley Field over 4th of July weekend this summer. He tossed a shutout through 7 innings before giving up a 2-run blast. Imanaga, who threw 7 innings, struck out 8, gave up 7 hits, 2 runs, still boasts a 1.0 earned run average and a 5-0 record. And the Cubs saved the win on Michael Busch's walk-off home run. They won that one 3-2. It was funny when the Giants were looking at pitchers earlier in the wintertime, they saw Shota Imanaga and they said he would just be below a replacement pitcher. So whenever Giants analytics guys are in our department, fire everyone and start over. Fire Farhan, our GM, who has had 1 good year, 2021, in the last 5. If you have 1 good year in your last 5 years at any job in the entire world, you automatically get fired. But this guy apparently has the best job security in the world. So, Max, Shota Imanaga has been showing out from Japan.
It seems like this is the year of Tokyo culture and Japan kind of bleeding through, whether it be the Kendrick Drake beef and talking about them, and then Japan getting a little pissed about that, right? And then Biden calling them xenophobic, and then we have some of the 3 best players in the sport right now, right? Let's not go too political. I know Alvin's going to get a little scared over here, but we have a great pitcher in Chicago. I mean, Yamamoto after his first game in Korea, he has now stepped up, and I mean, it's like he's like feeding off of the Dodger energy. He loves pitching at that stadium. He's great every single time he throws. And then we have Shohei having his Babe Ruth moment. The guy's batting over 360. He's either leading the league in home runs or he's one off. Right, he had a little bit of a slow start to the beginning of the year, and he's worth every single dollar of the $700 million without even pitching. You know, we have electric players this year. I really love the way the MLB Twitter account is just showcasing every single home run that is hit. It makes it super exciting as a fan just to know, like, hey, they're promoting the game finally. It took long enough. They were like, trying to scramble and find that person to be the face. Mike Trout wasn't it. Aaron Judge just for some reason just wasn't able to just reach that caliber. And now, hey, you know, let's import some Japanese players and let's just show them everywhere. Hey, you know, America, Capitals, and let's make the money, baby. And so Dodgers looking great. Chicago's looking great. Padres looking great. You know, it's a lot of great teams right now, and I'm excited to see what's happening for the rest of the year. Phillies, speaking of them, I called in the beginning of the year, right? I told them, I said this exactly. You pay the pitcher what he deserves, Zach Wheeler, and guess what? He's the number one pitcher in the show right now. And, you know, the Phillies, every single other night, you see Bryce Harper hitting a home run. So, you know, a lot of exciting baseball, speaking of summer, a lot of exciting baseball coming. And, you know, let's just keep watching.
Yeah, the Phillies have been on fire. Continued his heater with the Phillies last night. Bryce Harper went 3 for 3 with a grand slam in the fourth to spark a 10-1 blowout over the Blue Jays. They've won 7 straight, and they've officially owned the best record of the majors right now. Max at 26-11.
Yep.
I mean, team. I hate it when Max calls stuff right, Alvin.
On
Max does know
too.
Baseball, which
That's
is unfortunate.
tough.
Max actually does know baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I just knew one that, like, the Phillies fans, and you know, this is the last little tangent right here, but you know, they're big booers when Bryce Harper first came, right? He had to get his feet wet, and now for some reason, you know, it's just a match made in heaven. You know, poop heaven, I guess, but you know, they both love each other. Bryce Harper loves the fans love him, and I knew. Typically, when you give pitchers big contracts, they never work out, but I just had a feeling in my heart that Zach Wheeler was going to take the next step to lock down a championship and become the best pitcher in the game. And right now, that's who he is. Everything just kind of coming together for the Phillies. Great analytics, great strategy. Outfield defense was terrible, and then they fixed it around in the middle of last year. So they have everyone working on all cylinders. You know, it's a great machine that's moving, and I don't see a lot of stoppage from a lot of different teams, but we'll talk more about it when we get to the playoffs.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into our number 2 sports story. The NBA awards came out this week, Alvin, and you know, before we talk about that, obviously the NBA playoffs is going on. We're right in the middle of every single series that's happening right now: Western Conference semifinals, Eastern Conference semifinals. So we're actually not going to talk about that as of now. Next week, we're going to be hopping on with the head of Sports Fluent, Tony Kubridis, and we're going to actually talk about the playoffs in total, and you and Tony can actually go into a heated debate on who is the GOAT. LeBron, who you say is the GOAT, and he will die on the sword for Michael Jordan. So I think that's going to be a fun conversation to have with Tony next week. But the NBA awards came out, Alvin. The most valuable player is Nikola Jokic from the Denver Nuggets. The defensive player of the year is Rudy Gobert from the Minnesota Timberwolves. The rookie of the year is Victor Wembanyama from the San Antonio Spurs. Coach of the year is Mark Daigneault from the OKC Thunder. The clutch player of the year is Steph Curry from the Golden State Warriors. Sixth man of the year, Naz Reid from the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the most improved player, Tyrese Maxey from the Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, Jokic was going to win the MVP his third time ever. He was pretty much the best player in the league this year. The two I really don't get is the defensive player of the year, Rudy Gobert on the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is his third time winning this award. And now my biggest thing with Rudy Gobert is that defense looked like a number 1 defense against the Denver Nuggets through the first 2 games of the Western Conference semifinals without him. You know, this defense still fires on all cylinders. So how can you be a defensive player of the year if you still have the number 1 defense without the defensive player of the year? And the other one I don't get is the most improved player, Tyrese Maxey, who I'm pretty sure he's the first guy to go from making 20 points per game the year before and still be in the 20 points per game category the next year and win most improved player. I don't get it.
Yeah, most improved player is definitely one that a lot of speakers and thinkers of the game are just concerned about, because it's going from being a star, just important player on the team, and then you're a superstar. That's what you think it's supposed to be, but that's not what it's been. It's been, okay, this guy is either a starter or a six-man caliber guy, and now he's just playing out of his mind. So it's a little weird how most improvement is going. But I think the one that you hit on that obviously tickles me a little bit is the defensive player of the year, because everyone else, it makes a ton of sense. I think Nas Reed has proven that sixth man of the year was honestly well intended, because he's been
He's
on
killing
a
these
tear.
threes as a big.
He's so smooth too. His game is so smooth. When he gets in his package and he can put on the ground, once he gets confident from beyond the arc, you can't do nothing with him. But the Timberwolves as a whole, defensively, I understand defensive player of the year in that sense, where it's like, okay, best defense in the league, that was Timberwolves for sure. And then who do we think is the leader of that? Who do we think is the trailblazer of that? Who do we think is the guy calling the shots? And you just point to Rudy Gobert because he's won it before. You know, the Timberwolves weren't known for that prior to his presence, and now you got a 6-foot or a 7-footer in the paint, blocking shots, doing all the things. However, my qualm, and this is, first off, let me give credit, because Rudy Gobert, the biggest gripe that people has had with him is that he gets basically played off the floor at times. And he isn't typically known for guarding 1 through 5 in space. This year, however, he has been tremendous, especially in hedges when he's been pretty much the only guy. You don't necessarily see him in a drop. Primarily, he's actually up at level, pressing and moving his feet a little bit better for sure. So now you take where he was primarily guarding a 4 and a 5, and he was his best when he was a rover, essentially. If he could have him on a guy that wasn't necessarily an offensive threat, he could basically play free safety in the paint, block a lot of shots. It looks great, looks good. But when you think of what Bam Adebayo has been able to do for his entire career, and that's just the growth from as a rookie, second year, third, and his ability to just impact the game on the defensive end. He is a guy that is 1 through 5. There is no escaping. If you have a guard that is elite, you will sick Bam on him. If you have a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, it does not matter. And that's what holds the integrity of the Heat defense to the standard that it is, the 5th best in the league at the time of regular season closing. With Rudy Gobert being out, like you mentioned, in that second game, the problem is you have straight dogs, Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander, to be specific. Those two guys, when you sick that double-headed monster, Jamal Murray's throwing heat packs on the court because he's so frustrated. That duo is able to do so much, and you have everyone else that could rotate. Anthony Edwards is a dog. He could do his thing defensively. You have Conley that could do his due diligence on the defensive end as well. And you just go down the list. You have what Nas Reed has been able to do against Nikola Jokic. So the way that they looked as fluent as they did with him out just questions that a little bit. But Bam, stick to it. Hopefully he'll do the same thing next year, and he'll be able to take that defensive player of the year home in the following season.
Yeah, I thought it should have either been Bam or Victor Wembanyama. But if you take the defensive player of the year off of this Minnesota Timberwolves team, they still have the number 1 defense. And that's also a big tribute to Chris Finch, who could have been the head coach of the year for the NBA. Obviously, Mark Daigneault won it with the OKC Thunder. You know, rightfully so. They were the number 1 seed and have the second youngest roster in the entire NBA. But I really thought that Chris Finch and his defensive mind is what could have got it done for him to get NBA Coach of the Year. By the way, he's good friends with Coach Paul McKeskey. Him and Coach Mo actually coached and were both defensive coaches earlier in their careers. Kind of cool that we are able to have a guy like Coach Mo on the sports scene. So let's get into our number 1 sports story. Max, why don't fish play basketball?
Because they got no hands.
That's a great guess. No, because they're scared of the net.
Terrible.
I guess all of the, vegan and vegetarians are going to get mad at the show now. Oh, well. I wish we could get into that more, but stay tuned because our real number 1 sports story is coming up when we return here with Pete Aiello, only on the sports scene. Hey, welcome back to the sports scene, everyone. We are joined by a fan favorite of the show and also one of our favorite guests of the show. He is the race announcer at Gulfstream Park in South Florida, as well as been a race caller pretty much a bunch of other places as well. He's our favorite race caller to ever appear on this show. And, he's a fun guy to talk to, as always. Big sports racing head in the sports racing world. Pete Aiello joins the sports scene now. Pete, thank you so much for taking time out of your week to come and chat with us here at the sports scene. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and thanks so much for stopping by. We appreciate this.
Well, Jesse, it's always good to catch up with you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation here today. And thanks so much for always being a big cheerleader of mine. I certainly appreciate it.
Dude, yeah, we're your biggest fans, obviously. We pretty much listen to every big call you have out there. You know, we've heard your calls on, NBC so far this year, TVG as well as FanDuel TV, right? So that was all during the championship meet. I wanted to know, how did that all end up for you from the announcer side and from just, as a Gulfstream Park side? What do you think? How'd it go?
It was great. The Pegasus, the Pegasus was good, and then I think the Florida Derby probably stole the scene, though. I mean, it didn't work out for fierceness in the Kentucky Derby, which I know we'll probably talk about a little bit from now. But the performance he put on in Hallandale on Florida Derby Day was something special, and from a personal standpoint, it was probably my favorite Florida Derby race call. There was a lot of backstory behind it, and I was glad to execute it as an homage to a guy I certainly have so much respect for, in Dave Rodman.
Yeah, so how do you prepare for like a Florida Derby like that? Is, I know you kind of go from race to race to race, but is there more prep that goes into a Florida Derby versus, another race? Like you look at it, a couple days before, you have your sports lines you want to hit or your stories you want to hit, or is it just you treat it like any other race? You're just getting prepared for the big moment. You got the 20 minutes in between post times.
Well, I mean, I think there's even if it's subliminal, there's a little bit more preparation that goes into it. I mean, I know that Larry Colmus and Travis Stone were talking about how they prepare for the Kentucky Derby months and months ahead of time. And everybody does it their own way, and everybody has their own style, and that's not only for race calling, that's for broadcasting in general. Guys make a lot of notes, some guys make no notes. It's just what makes you comfortable. For me, if I had to study that long before a race, I would definitely mess it up. It's all about staying loose and staying relaxed. And the big races, they do weigh on you. And I was actually sitting in the exact chair I'm sitting in right now. The week before the Florida Derby, and I had this epiphany about the potential storyline for fierceness being very similar to a storyline for a horse named Point Given, who won the Preakness in the turn of the millennium. And Point Given's win in the Preakness was probably the race call that kind of inspired me to want to do the job. So I had this epiphany moment, and I text Dave Rodman, who's such a good friend of mine, and he's just so good. And I said, I'm thinking about a Rodman tribute call in the Preakness, and I mean for the Florida Derby. And he texted me back. He texted me back exactly the line I wanted to use. And so I said, well, I guess that means I have your permission. He goes, yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it works out. And
Really?
So, the backstory there, a little bit more about the backstory. So, I'm a degenerate gambler, huge horse racing fan, in high school. And so Point Given had been favorite for the Kentucky Derby and not finished very well. He was off the board and kind of disappointed everybody. But he ran back in the Preakness, and I was a big fan of his. And I said, well, we didn't get to see the real Point Given in the Derby, so we'll get to see the real Point Given in the Preakness. And I was, obnoxious, loud horse racing fan at the Palm Beach Kennel Club, my local OTB, screaming at the television when they turned for home. And Gary Stevens was the jockey, and I said, okay, Stevens, cut him loose. Let everybody see the real Point Given. And just as I had screamed that, Dave Rodman's race call was Point Given, the real Point Given. And so it was like this huge, eureka moment. Like, wait a minute, I just got done yelling this, and this is what he delivers in the race call. Like, I don't know this guy, but what a hugely cool, emotional connection to make with somebody that you don't know. And I thought, that was kind of that first point where I was like, you know what? I think I want to try to do that. I mean, that's cool as hell to make an emotional connection like that and to tell the story the same way that, that I was as a fan watching it. So to get to essentially redo that call myself for fierceness, because fierceness was the 2-year-old champion. For those who may not know, he was the 2-year-old champion. He had run freakishly well in the Breeders' Cup. And he made his seasonal debut at Gulfstream in the Holy Bull Stakes, and he ran terrible as the big favorite. So The storyline set up that in the Florida Derby, we didn't get to see the real fierceness in the Holy Bull. But if we saw the real fierceness, the one that won the Breeders' Cup, it would be something special. So, and that is what we saw. We saw something special. We saw certainly one of the best Florida Derby performances in the last 30 to 35 years. He freaked. He won by the length of a landing strip. So getting to unleash that call, which was perfect, and then going way into the weeds. The cool part about it was, Jesse, is that so I knew the line from my own fandom was point given, the real point given, but I had no idea what Dave said after that. I didn't know. And so when I called the race, I just kind of winged it. I just said what came to my mind. And I said, fierceness, the real fierceness, has showed up to Hallandale and is running away with the Florida Derby, or whatever superlative I used. Well, I went back on the way home and listened to Rodman's call in the Preakness, and the call was point given, the real point given, has showed up to Baltimore, so it was literally exactly the same call.
You hit it on the money.
I did, but I didn't know that I did until after, which made it even cooler, and it made it even more of that this was a meant to be type moment. So it was probably the most emotional I was after a race call since the first Pegasus, just because it was it was a hugely significant thing. I was real happy with the way it went, and then Dave has been such a huge supporter of mine, and I'm so happy that he's my friend, but at the same time, to get to kind of go full circle from just the fan who aspires to do the job to the guy who's doing the job, and then gets to kind of dial the hands of time back to tell that same story in my version of it, which was super, super cool. I guess the best analogy that I could give would be like you falling in love with a rock and roll song and then getting permission from the guy after you're a rock and roller to cover that song. That
makes sense.
And then shredding it and doing it really, really well. It's a hugely significant thing.
That's awesome. So as a announcer, for me as a broadcaster, I prep for things a little bit differently as well than I think a lot of other people would, because if I prep like week or two in advance, I like psych myself out, and then I just like lose focus on everything that I need to do, especially when it comes to big calls. With big calls, I actually have this thing where I have a little notepad with me always that I bring with me to games and whatnot. And I write down, if I think of something off the top of my head, like, ooh, I think that'd be kind of fun to say on air, I would write it down, in the moment, and then have that notepad with me later. For those big calls, do you go into them memorizing, kind of what you want to say, and then whatever comes out of your mouth comes out of your mouth, or do you have it written down, what you're thinking about saying? Because I know a lot of people in big moments, like in baseball and everything, when Barry Bonds hit his home run 756, Dwayne Kuiper literally had, a notepad with his quote on it, exactly how he wanted to say it, exactly how he wanted to deliver it, so he knew he wouldn't mess up. But are you more off of a top of the brain guy, or do you write stuff down as well?
Kind of a mix between. I write it down in my brain because I've tried to do the actual like write it down and look down. The last horse I can remember doing that for was a horse that they named after Caddyshack named Carl Spackler, and I wasn't a huge fan of the movie, so I had to write down the movie quotes to figure out which one I could unleash. But the thing about my race calls is and it's no different than any other sporting broadcast. Unless you're super, super talented, you're going to sound like you're reading. It's not going to sound organic. It's not going to sound that emotional punch is not going to be there. And so I always try to just let the moment happen and be the soundtrack to that moment as much as I can. And, like I said, there's nothing wrong with being extra prepared or having it written down. It's just, for me, the times that I've tried it, I can relate to you. The times that I've tried it, it just psychs me out. I feel compelled to look at it. I feel compelled to, to change my cadence of speaking to read off of this paper. And that's why even when I do like voiceovers for radio commercials, I said, listen, just, I'll read it, but it's going to sound scripted. Let me wing it. And then if you don't like the wing it version, then we'll read it, and then you can compare the two.
I like that. I really do. Hey, when you're calling the Florida Derby or the Pegasus World Cup, which one is a little more nerve-wracking for you? Because obviously they're both on NBC, right? They're huge calls. And unlike, me, when I'm calling football or basketball, whatever, my call isn't going out to the general crowd that's either at the arena, at the stage, or at the stadium, or at the ballpark, right? But you can literally see all the people down below you on the mezzanine level and everything, and they could clearly hear your calls. Which one's a little more nerve-wracking for you, the Florida Derby or the Pegasus World Cup?
Well, I don't really worry about the on-track crowd because I always, in my mind, none of them can hear me because the crowd noise is so loud that even though we do have the speakers right on the rail, and then, where you like to hang out, the Carousel Club, they purposely turn the volume off. So, then people don't even know there's a race running half the time. But, it's hard to compare. That's like saying, what's tougher to call, Joe Buck, the World Series or the Super Bowl? I mean, there's certainly comparisons for both, but and they're also the same in the sense that they're always late in the day. So you've done 13 or 12 races ahead of time. I think that for me, the Pegasus is always more nerve-wracking because of the spacing of it, in the sense that it's the first big race of the season. By the time the Florida Derby rolls around, I've done the Fountain of Youth, I've done the Pegasus, I've done the Holy Bull. So it's not quite as. I mean, it's 1 and 1A, but I think Pegasus is probably more of that. I think people will listen to some of the Pegasus calls more in 30 years than some of the Florida Derby calls. Although this year, I would say that this one's going to be, played back for a long, long time because it was something special.
Yeah, I mean, you knocked it right on the money too. And now, kind of, what do you have going on these days? Because the championship meet is obviously over at Gulfstream Park, right? And then it won't start back up till really late in the fall here in South Florida. So what's going on for you?
No, we're still running. We run year round, so it's just kind of you take a step back from the pressure cooker, and I think it's, again, to try to make a baseball analogy. It's like calling a 3-game stand in July where you're 20 games under 500 than it is when you're in the pennant race and get ready. I mean, you don't airmail it by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a lot less day-to-day pressure that goes along with every race.
And so, what does that look like for you? You guys are racing. Do you still race, Monday through Sunday, or what's your schedule like these days?
We're running right now. We go Thursday through Sunday.
Thursday,
and then in July, when we lose a couple more horses to the Virginia and New Jersey circuits, we go down to 3 days. So then it's Friday through Sunday. I don't particularly care for that. 4 days is beautiful. I think that's just enough where you don't get burned out. 3 days for me is not enough. So
gotcha.
I like that. This is the part of the year I like the best.
Really? No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, but then
cruise control.
No pressure, but enough to wet your whistle, so to speak. Keep you focused and in the zone.
Are there any big races coming up at Gulfstream we should be on the lookout for?
Well, we have it'll be a little bit later on in the season. We've done some changes to the calendar, but some of the speed races, the Princess Rooney for Breeders' Cup purposes, and then the Florida Sire Stakes a bit later on for the Florida bred horses. So that's kind of those are the centerpieces of the summertime season. But right now we're just we're getting a look at some of the 2-year-olds. South Florida has always been kind of a good incubator for the 2-year-olds. So we saw, we've already seen a horse that broke his maiden first out at Gulfstream go up and try to run against the best 2-year-olds right now at Churchill. So you never know where the next future superstar is going to come from. So I like the 2-year-old races. It's fun to, and I'm getting to the point now where I've seen, their mothers and their fathers race. So
wow,
it's a generational thing. You can kind of follow the sport. It would be like, to me, it would be like calling a game that Vlad Sr. played in and now getting to call a game that Vlad Jr.'s playing in.
That'd be awesome. How long have you been at Gulfstream Park for?
It'll be 11 years in June. June 30th will be 11 years, which is crazy.
So and we were talking about this last time, right? They have that big, not scoreboard, but like the video board.
Much a scoreboard,
it's a scoreboard, right? So they put that up in your time there, right? So that was something you had to get accustomed to.
I'm still not used to it. I don't know that I'll I don't know that I'll ever be used to it. It just it's perfectly positioned to make it impossible to be completely comfortable because it's right smack dab in the center or the start of most races. So if it's the start of the race, you start off on the back foot and you're playing defense the whole time. And then if it's a 2-turn race like the Pegasus or the Florida Derby, just when you're settling down, you can't let your guard down because you're going to forget. And they go by that board, and if you're not ready for that, that's a huge thing where you got the binoculars up, and then all of a sudden you can't see something.
Yeah.
So I've had the big board there for the whole time I've been there, but only the last 3 or 4 years have they changed it to the point where I can't see. The first few years I could see, but now I can't see.
Yeah.
I mean, literally last week we started 2 races last week behind it. I mean, imagine the race starts and you have no idea.
You can't see anything.
I mean, I do my best because working with the quarter horses so long, I can kind of read the shadows because you have to look at the TV and then they're coming right at you, so it's kind of hard. And people go, how do you do that? I'm like, well, Ed Burgard in Southern California taught me, use the shadows. The shadows will never lie. So I'm looking more down at the shadows that the horses are casting more than the horses themselves when I can't see them and they're coming head on.
I would have never thought that. I thought maybe you would, maybe just like cheat a little bit and see it like on the big video board, like who's out in front or something like that. But
that's what I'm saying though. That shot is the only shot I have, and he can't see either.
Wow.
Neither one of us can see, so they have to go to a head-on shot, looking down the backside, so they're coming right at you on the TV shot, and that's the only shot that even the TV guys have. So that's I have to go with. And, sometimes I remind the fans, my view is your view. In other words, there's not any sort of fancy thing that I get to see that you don't. So, usually if I'm saying that, it's kind of my way of saying ease up on me on the criticism because I can't see either.
I mean, dude, you bang these races out flawlessly, though. That's amazing that you can look at these horses' feet, essentially, and see the shadows and be like, yep, this is horse. This is the other horse. That's incredible. Have you ever thought about, asking them, hey, maybe we should just put a camera on the far side? That'd help everyone out so we could all see, Have you talked to them about that? Should we start a petition here on the sports scene to help you get that done? I'm down.
One of the things that they're working on that would be very helpful is the drone shot. So, we got the drone shots for the big days for Pegasus and Florida Derby. And that can be a little bit of a mind, if you're not ready for it. But if you're ready for it, the drone shot can really be helpful because essentially what's happening is when they switch views, your mind and your eyes are locked into where you're at. So if you're calling the fourth horse when they switch camera views, whatever view you're looking at, you're looking for the fourth horse. Well, if it's a head-on shot, it's hard because there's no depth perception because they're coming right at you. But if you're looking over top of them with the drone view, then it's easy. Then you just go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. I mean, you're doing it in real time in split seconds, but you know where you to focus your eyes. With the head-on shot, it's almost impossible sometimes because you don't know where to focus your eyes.
Okay, that's interesting. I've always also wanted to ask an announcer this, horse racing announcer this. So you're here on the show, so I got to ask you, how often does a race announcer get on a horse? Not as like a joke or anything. No, I'm actually very curious.
Well, I have my limited my experience on the hands-on horse side has been limited because obviously I'm a big guy, so they're not going to let me get on any sort of thoroughbreds. That being said, I have actually had quite a bit of experience with the standard bred horses, with the horses that pulling the sulky, so the chariot, you could be calling it. I have quite a bit of experience of doing that, and I love that. That was very very entertaining. And a couple years ago, I raced the announcer at the local track down here that's no longer with us, Pompano Park. We raced and had an actual race for charity and raised over $60,000 for charity. So that was a good experience. So harness horses, ironically enough, I work at a thoroughbred track, so I can't really tell you about the thoroughbreds other than from the fans' perspective. But harness horses is a different story. I'm reasonably competent in that area.
Well, we like that you can kind of tell everyone like it is from a fan perspective, because then it gives us more insight into, what's going on in these races and what's going on with the horses just in general. And that's something, I really appreciate from your style of broadcasting is like, how do you appeal to the average fan? How do you get the average fan into broadcasting? Is that something, or not just into broadcasting, but into horse racing? Is that something you constantly are thinking about? Like, how do I bring in not just horse racing fans, but just the average fan that shows up to the Florida Derby or the Pegasus World Cup because they're an Instagram influencer or a TikTok influencer? How do I get them now into horse racing? Is that something you think about a lot?
Well, I don't know if I think about it a lot. I do recognize that there's certainly different segments of the audience, and that every segment of that audience has different needs. and you have to balance that in the race call. So I would say the casual fan doesn't really care what I'm saying. They only care about how I'm saying it. So you want to deliver that ambiance, and you want to amp them up and pump them up, and make the race exciting. Whereas the regular crusty regular gambler may hate that style, and there's a lot of them that don't like me because of that. But so you don't want to be too over the top, because then you're alienating that segment of the audience, and I try not to alienate any segment. But at the end of the day, the guys who gravitate towards my style are the guys who can relate on an emotional level, and for me, that's what I'm looking at. I mean, we're all in the broadcasting business, whether it's horse racing, baseball, football, soccer, tennis, hockey, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, we're really not in whatever sporting event we're calling. Not in my opinion, anyway. We're in the emotion business, because if you're not connecting with your audience on an emotional level, regardless of what you're broadcasting, then you're not doing a good job. Because that, at the end, is what you're brought to do, and at least in my opinion. Some people would say, just play by play it, call the action, and go on with it. But I don't think that history has proven over the course of time that key moments in sports are not enhanced by the broadcast. So at the end of the day, all the iconic, think about it. All the iconic sporting moments that we have, I can't believe what I just saw. All of the wonderful Vin Scully moments. Do you believe in miracles? Al Michaels at the Olympics. I mean, every one of them has some sort of soundtrack to that moment. And so if you're not providing that soundtrack in context with the moment, then you're not doing the job right, in my opinion.
A lot of people say how much they really like your style of call and everything. I have to be your biggest fan. You are unbelievable, just as a person and, on the mic as well. We're going to take a break from our conversation with our man Pete Aiello right there for a commercial break. But don't go anywhere, because we talk a lot more horse racing, including the Kentucky Derby, coming up next here on the Sports Scene. Oh, baby. Welcome back to the Sports Scene, everyone. We are right in the middle of our conversation with Gulfstream Park announcer Pete Aiello. And here's where we give all of our juicy thoughts and content on the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes. Both are coming up. Are you ready to talk about the Kentucky Derby?
We got lots to talk about on that.
Oh, yeah. All right, here we go. So this was Kentucky Derby number 150. We're going to start there. And it probably was one of the craziest ones we've seen in years. There was a photo finish to decide the winner between three horses, with Mystic Dan, who was at 16-1 odds, finally getting announced as the victor minutes after the race ended. And that horse, the thoroughbred, held on to a narrow lead over Sierra Leone, who was 5-1 in the odds, and Forever Young, who was 6-1 across the finish line. And every single one of those horses finished ahead of the other one by literally a nose. Would you say that this was one of the craziest finishes you've seen in the Kentucky Derby in a while? And did you like the way it ended?
Certainly, it was one of the more exciting finishes that we've seen in a while. I think it's the only Derby, at least in my recent memory, maybe in my lifetime, so 20, 25 years, where a very compelling case could be made that not only was the horse who won the race not necessarily the best horse, but that you could make a very compelling case that either of the second or third horses, if something else had gone differently for them, were the best horse. And when you're looking at it from a margin of a neck between first and third, the Japanese horse Forever Young got mugged by Sierra Leone. If he had not been mugged, would he have won the race? I think so. But by the same token, Sierra Leone kind of beat himself by shifting ground to the left all the way down the stretch and lugging in, as we call it in the game. If he had not have lugged in, would he have won the race? I think so. So it's such an interesting thing where you can play Monday morning quarterback and make very compelling arguments that either the second or third horse could have very easily won, but for some sort of interference or tactic or misfortune in the stretch.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of things about, was he touched a little bit? Was he, cut off? Those are things that people are always going to debate, especially when it comes down to a photo finish like it is in horse racing. And nothing else in sports really compares to something like a photo finish, right? Because, in all these other sports, right, you could clearly see, okay, a ball gets hit out of a ballpark or a quarterback throws a touchdown and the guy runs into the end zone, right? There's not really like a photo finish except for, maybe in NASCAR, like car racing.
NASCAR.
Yeah, exactly. Like sort of racing in general is the only thing that has a photo finish. Hey, so you mentioned earlier, Fierceness, who was 7-2, entered the race as the betting favorite and actually jumped out to an early lead at the quarter pole, but then fell behind down the stretch and eventually finished in 15th. That's not what we really expected, was it?
Well, it is what I expected, to be honest with you.
Really?
Because,
well, you're smarter than I am, so.
Well, here's the thing, and hopefully there's some baseball listeners can appreciate what I'm getting ready to impersonate.
Okay.
I'm going to just do the movie for you. I mean, just put it in horse racing context.
Yeah.
Jesus, this guy hits a ton. How come nobody else picked up on him? All right, Eddie, that's enough fastballs. Throw him some breaking balls. And that's essentially Pedro Serrano in that movie is essentially Fierceness. If you throw him fastballs, he's going to knock it 500 feet. But as soon as he has to deal with any sort of movement on the ball, he whiffs. And that's exactly what we saw in so in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Fierceness was left alone. He got into a nice, easy rhythm, and he absolutely destroyed the field. In the Florida Derby, he was left alone. He got into a nicely easy rhythm and absolutely destroyed the field. But when you're talking about the Kentucky Derby, a distance he's never ran at, a track he's never ran at, a field size he's never ran at, a pace that he's never ran at, I knew going into the race, there's no way he's going to get things his own way. And by the time they went to the first turn, there were 4 horses across the track, and he was 3 wide of the 4. So he had a horse on his inside, and he had a horse on his outside. And I looked over at who was in the room with me watching the race. I said, he's done. There's no way he can win with a horse pushing him on the outside. Now, as it ended up, the horse who was 4 wide didn't want to be 4 wide the whole way because he didn't want to lose that much ground. So he took back, and then Fierceness got to kind of stalk on the outside, which is much more in line with his style. But to me, mentally, it was already over at that point for him. And he just, he was close to the action. And then when they asked for a run, there was nothing in reserve.
So Mystic Dan's trainer, Kenneth McPeak, he became the first trainer, I think, to win both the Derby and the Kentucky Oaks on the same weekend since 1952 after Torpedo Anna emerged victorious at the Oaks on Friday, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. I actually heard that interview with Kenny Rice this morning. That it was the first. I want to know who the last person to do it is. I didn't happen to look up who won it in '52 to know who it was, but it was a heck of a feat. I mean, and Kenny's one of those guys that's, he's one of those guys that publicly he kind of likes everything he runs, but he was very high on Torpedo Anna, who I did have some knowledge of going into the race. But even after Mystic Dan won, I looked at him, I said, who is that horse? Where did he come from? What is the resume? I have no idea who he is.
Isn't that crazy? I think and when I was listening to the interview afterwards, McPeak gave credit to the jockey, Brian Hernandez Jr., after the win, and he called him, quote, one of the most underrated riders in racing. Do you think that's true? Obviously, now after the historic win, I don't think that label really applies anymore, but still.
I'll tell you this. So Brian got a lot of credit, as well he should have. And if you haven't seen the drone shot of him trying to squeeze through at the rail and turn for home, it's something to see. Even if you're not a horse racing fan, or if you're a sporting fan, you can appreciate that. Holy crap, he had next to no room trying to muscle through at the inside. And I have actually got to see Brian do that, at least off the top of my head, 3 times. And the one that I remember the most was at Gulfstream. He did it on a horse named Harvey Wallbanger, almost exactly the same type trip that he gave Mystic Dan. He squeezed through at the rail, came off the corner, and slingshot it off the turn and ended up winning the race. So, for me, Calvin Burrell gets a lot of credit. They call him Calvin Bull Rail for, saving ground on the rail. But I've seen Brian Hernandez do it at Gulfstream and now at Churchill. So credit where credit is due.
Do you think that horse really wanted to be inside on the rail, or do you think horses prefer to be more on the outside?
I personally, my opinion, he wouldn't have gone through there if he wasn't ready for it. I think
Okay.
that I've seen enough races in my life, to your point. If
Yeah.
they don't want to be down in there, they're not going down in there. So
Yeah.
I think that there's, Mystic Dan gets some credit as an individual and being athletic, that he was, he trusted Brian and Brian trusted him. It's like, all right, Papa, let's get through up down inside, and credit to the horse because he quickened right through.
So this was kind of a historic Kentucky Derby on multiple fronts. The first being that there was a record-breaking guaranteed $5 million purse, 3.1 of which went to Mystic Dan. That surpassed the previous $3 million purse, which had been in place since 2019. Do you think that was, another big storyline to this weekend?
Honestly, no. I think
Really?
no. I think the race markets itself. I think that
Yeah.
I think that whether you offer the race, if you had said we're going to give you $3 million instead of $5 million, I don't think there's a single horse that would have said, "Oh, well, I'm not running that." I mean, you had a waiting list for horses that want to get in. I think that there's so much ancillary economic impact for running in the Derby and being successful in the Derby that it's kind of the proverbial cherry on the sundae, what you actually make in purses for the Derby. Everything else, residual value as a stallion, marketing appeal as an individual, whether you're the horse trainer or the jockey, that's way more than the purse.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's another historic thing for you. I want to see if this one you bite to a little bit more. So the victory of Mystic Dan, his nose victory, drew 16.7 million viewers for the Kentucky Derby. This was the biggest audience for the race since 1989, with viewership peaking at 20.1 million people watching this thing. What do you think about that?
I think it's wonderful. I think
There we
that
go.
I think that the industry has been taking heavy artillery, most of it unfairly so, for 3 or 4 years now, and it's refreshing to see the public come out and support the industry and kind of, in my opinion, send a message back to some of the, to the propagandists and the folks that are maybe on the not lunatic fringe, but on the extreme side of the coin, and say, hey, listen, we still do appreciate this for the sporting event that it is and for the industry that it is. And I think that, the industry also had a heck of a weekend in terms of horse safety and health of the participants too. And I think that, unfortunately, I think that the folks with ill intentions for our industry kind of got a handle on the narrative early on. And you can chalk that up to whatever you want, media bias or, the salaciousness of the storylines or what media, goes for, whatever you want to say. But the reality of the situation was that we've been on the back foot from a public perception standpoint and from a public relations standpoint for 2 or 3 years now. And I think it's important that we fire back with a little counterpunch of our own, that, you listen, some of these reforms were very, very much necessary. We've executed these reforms, and now here's the result of those reforms as well. And, really kind of turn the narrative on its head that, this prevailing propaganda that nobody cares, whether it's, on the backside or on the front side, it's just, it's A, it's wrong, and B, it's just not true. I mean, and it needs to be turned around.
I looked this one up for you actually just to make sure I was right, and it is the biggest Derby since 18.5 million watched Sunday Silence win it in 1989. So I looked that one up for you just to make sure that we had the historical context ready for you for this one. So
I'll give you added historical context, ironically enough.
Give it to me.
Sunday Silence would then be sold to a blossoming horse racing nation of Japan, to Stan Stud in Japan. And the Sunday Silence bloodline has been the foundation of Japanese racing now for the last 25 years. And you're seeing some of the effects of that with Forever Young and horses from Japan going on, not only on the U.S. racing scene, but internationally. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say ass, but kicking ass.
There we go. Yeah, I say it.
Kicking ass and taking names on an international stage. That all came from their acquisition of Sunday Silence at the end of his racing career in the early 90s.
Okay. Pete, let's look forward now. Mystic Dan, are they the favorite? Do you think they're going to be the favorite for the Preakness?
Would you say I'm crazy if I said no?
No, I would say you're completely normal because I don't think they should be the favorite for the Preakness.
Well, I don't think he's going to be favored. I think there's too much hype about Muth coming in fresh for Bob Baffert. Muth has already beat Mystic Dan. Muth is the fresher horse, having not raced in the Derby. Obviously, for me as an industry participant, I'm rooting for Mystic Dan at this point because I want to continue the momentum and continue the storyline and continue to beat back the rioters, as it were. And so I hope he runs, and I hope he runs well. For me, again, going back to the heavy artillery that we've been taking as an industry, I don't think it would serve our cause if the guy who kind of is the lightning rod for a lot of that high energy happens to win the Preakness.
That'd be a little crazy. So Preakness and the Belmont Stakes coming up. Who should we be on the lookout for besides Moot for both of those?
Well, it'll be interesting to see. So the most, we're recording this the week after the Derby. So
yeah,
at that point, there's a lot of guys that are freshening their horses up from the Derby to run back in the Belmont. But the Belmont is not going to be at Belmont. It's going to be at it's going to be held at Saratoga. Right. So it's a mile and a quarter, not a mile and a half, because of the configuration of the Saratoga track. So this is going to be like historic stuff. So maybe they don't have to worry about that extra distance that always plagues horses to run in the Belmont. For me, knowing that Forever Young just caught a plane back from Chicago to Japan, and he's probably not getting on an airplane to come back and run in the Belmont, I think the most logical thing to think is that Sierra Leone, if he can behave himself and not try to go left in the lane, I would think that if he's freshened up and as good as he was in the Derby, I think he's the horse for the Belmont myself.
Okay,
but I like
you don't
him in
think
the Derby, so maybe I'm biased.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So you don't think we're going to see a Triple Crown here by Mystic Dan?
I want it to happen, but I
feel like a Triple Crown is good for the sport, though, right?
It absolutely is. That's exactly what I was talking about wanting him to win the Preakness, because I'd like there to be a Triple Crown on the line. But you hear Kenny McPeak say that he wants to make sure that he runs the horse that wants to be make sure that he's at his best for running in the Preakness, and there still has not, at the time we're recording this, there hasn't been an official declaration from Kenny that he's running in the Preakness. Now, I think that would be horrible if he didn't run. I understand why he wouldn't, because we have to do right by the athlete, and if he's not 100%, then that's fine. But apparently, from what I understand, this is a horse who thrives on a little bit more time between his races. So even if he runs in the Preakness and happens to fire a big shot, I have to figure that the battery power is going to be on E for running 5 or 3 times in 5 weeks. So, but at that point, you're just a fan of his because you want him to win the Triple Crown.
You know who I really wanted to win the Triple Crown actually was last year. I thought Forte could have done it. The winner of the Florida Derby, right? Wasn't it that Forte?
Yes. But
that horse was really fast.
But he laid an egg. Well, he scratched. He scratched
the Kentucky Derby.
The Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's been some great horses that have not won it that should have. For me, Point Given's the best horse in the last 30 years to not win it that did. Won 2. Well, he's certainly. I don't think you could even make an argument to the contrary that he's the best horse from a resume standpoint to win 2 of the 3 legs of the Triple Crown without winning the 3rd one. And he's one of the only ones in the scenario that he lost the Derby and then won the Preakness and then destroyed them in the Belmont and then came back and won the Haskell at Monmouth and then came back and destroyed them in the Travers. Granted, I'm very biased because I was a huge Point Given fan, but surely from an accomplishment standpoint, we haven't seen many horses that have been as good as him.
No, I remember that, when I really started to get into horse racing, right? You had American Pharoah, who was just like, he was just the biggest.
Me feel so old.
No, I'm not saying that, that's like that long ago. I'm just saying that, before American Pharoah, the last Triple Crown winner wasn't since 1978?
Yep.
So there you go. So I remember seeing American Pharoah and being like, wow, this is crazy. I thought Big Brown was going to be the other horse to do it in my lifetime until Justify came along. And Justify didn't even actually look like it would be a Triple Crown winner, but that horse just kept going.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go back and look at like some of the story, I mean, Smarty Jones, I can remember being in high school and getting in a huge fight with this obnoxious New York gambler who was taking great joy in the fact that Smarty Jones lost the Belmont. That was heartbreaking to me. I thought he was as good a chance as we had up until then. Real quiet, losing to Victory Gallop in the Belmont. That's still unbelievable to watch that race. I'm so glad I didn't call that race, is all I can say.
Because you would have been upset.
Well, no, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, if you want to go back and pull it up on YouTube, pull up the Real Quiet Belmont Stakes. I mean, not only is he in line for like a $5 million bonus for winning the Triple Crown, he looks like he's all but home and cooled out until the last jump. And even if you watch it, you're not sure he didn't win. Yeah, and Tom Durkin didn't call it. He said, I think he had a very good call, something to the effect of, a photo's worth 1,000 words, but this photo's worth $6 million or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was great.
That's awesome.
You had War Emblem. That was kind of a flukish thing in the sense that he won the Derby. Nobody thought he could win, and then he won the Preakness, and everybody was convinced he couldn't possibly lose the Belmont because he won the Preakness. I didn't think he had any chance to win any of the three of them. So then when he ran, he stumbled at the start of the Derby. So at the start of the Belmont, and then was never heard from after that. You had Funny Side again, another beautiful storyline. New York bred, won the Derby as a long shot, destroyed them in the Preakness, and then heartbreakingly lost the Belmont. So we've had a lot of teasing over the last 30 years. So for Pharaoh and then for Justify to finally get us back on the Triple Crown side of things has been nice. But I just keep reading the stuff about it's too hard. The industry's changed. The athletes have changed. We need to change the spacing of the races. And call me old fashioned, call me old school, traditional, whatever. I just don't see that being the answer.
No, and it's like in baseball, getting throwing a perfect game as a pitcher.
Yeah,
it happens because people adapt to whatever the times are. So these horses, these players, they're gonna adapt. And we are going to see another Triple Crown in our lifetimes, Please, universe. Like, come on. Yeah. We got this. Hey, Pete, what's next for you? What's on the horizons for you? What you got going on? Obviously, besides, working Thursday through Sunday.
You got some side hustle for me? I could go for a side hustle or two.
How about you come back on the sports scene after the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes, and we keep breaking these races down?
Sounds good to me. We'll do that.
All right. Pete, you are kicking ass and taking names, as you have said. Pete Aiello on the sports scene. Hey, thanks so much for joining me, sir. I really appreciate your time.
Always great to talk with you.
That's our man, Pete Aiello. One more scene coming up on the sports scene. Welcome back to the sports scene, everyone, for our final segment. Hey, we're all really a tough critic of Max, but Max actually last week, great game. We played Guess Who. If you haven't checked out that episode yet, please go on to Sports Fluent Media on YouTube or on iHeartRadio to check out last week's episode. Max hosted the kids game, Guess Who, but we changed it for a sports version, and it was me versus Alvin. So I had a lot of fun playing that game with you, Alvin, and Max. Again, great job with that one. So this week, we're going to do Guess That, where I'm going to make Max and Alvin guess a top 10 list of many different topics around the sports world. Max, Alvin, your first one is I want you both to guess the top 10 biggest NFL stadiums in the United States of America. So the way this works is you guys are going to guess. If you get the number 1 right, you get 10 points. Number 2, 9 points, all the way down to number 10, right? You get 1 point. So Alvin, we're going to start with you first.
Top 10. Okay, let's go.
You guess 1, and then Max will guess 1.
Okay, let's go. AT&T Stadium.
Great guess. That is number 2. 8 points for Alvin. Max.
I'm going to go with... Yeah, this is tough. I'm just going to go with the Raiders Stadium.
Not on the list.
Oh! Dang.
All right, let's go.
Alvin.
Let's go Lucas Oil Stadium. Let's go Colts.
Incorrect.
All right, yeah, I'm just going to go with Arrowhead then.
Also not on the list. Incorrect.
What?
Wow.
That's like the loudest one.
Yeah, you would think. But that's one of the stadiums that they repump in the audio noise to the stadium, so it sounds louder than it is.
Field. If that's not on there, if the Seahawks Stadium is not on there, I'm gonna lose it.
That is number 3 on the list, Alvin. That is
Bet.
correct. So you've got number 2, AT&T Stadium, which has 80,000 seats, and number 3, which is formerly known as CenturyLink Stadium, and is actually when I went to it, it was called CenturyLink, but now Lumen Field, 72,733 seats.
I'm going to go MetLife.
MetLife is number 1, Max. Great.
I knew it. There we go. Come on.
Great
Yes.
job. So
I was like, if they're not number 1, then I don't even know.
Let's go Benzo. Let's go Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. The Falcons.
not on the list.
Yeah, as soon as you said it, was like,
Let's go.
okay.
Max.
I will go with the Green Bay. Lambeau?
Not on the list.
Wow.
All right, I'm gonna do a hard one. Let's do Hard Rock.
Not on the list. Close though.
Dang.
But not on the list.
All right, Gillette. Gillette's got to be up there.
That is
somewhere.
number 7.
Okay, we'll take it.
In Foxborough, Massachusetts, 65,878 seats, home of the New England Patriots.
Dang. What
Actually
about
got 14 points now.
What about the Superdome? Caesars Superdome.
Not on the list.
SoFi.
SoFi Stadium, Max, is on the list. It's number 5.
Let's
in
go.
Inglewood, California, 70,240 seats. The state-of-the-art stadium is shared by the Los Angeles Rams and the Los Angeles Chargers and features a translucent roof, although, we'll see how long the Chargers actually play there for. Good job, Max.
That's rough.
Number 5.
Levi Stadium.
No, not on the list, unfortunately. Wish it was,
There's
There's
but
no
it's not. Otherwise, I would have been able to attend any game, but they're just too expensive now.
Okay. NRG Stadium.
No.
What?
on the list.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah, you would think.
All right, let's go Steelers Stadium.
Great guess. No, close.
All right, well, M&T Bank Stadium, Baltimore Ravens.
That is number 10, Max.
All right,
Max
we'll
is
take it.
cooking
Nice.
right now.
Yeah, you got to know where the people are at.
All right, what
They're
about Highmark Stadium?
That is number 9, Alvin. Good job.
All right,
Number
well, so what's
9,
left?
Highmark Stadium in Orchard Park, New York, 71,608 seats. Home to the Buffalo Bills, 4 and 8. Yes.
Okay.
I'm surprised you haven't gotten it, Max, on both of them, interestingly.
Well, then now, I mean, you just gave me the biggest hint of all time. But I'm afraid that you led me down the wrong path, maybe. So I'm just going to go with TIAA Bank Field.
In
And
Jacksonville, Florida, that is number
Jacksonville,
8.
Florida.
67,246 seats in TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville, Florida, home to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Did we say Lincoln Financial Field already?
We did not say Lincoln Financial Field. That is number 4, Alvin. Great guess. Why, do you think it's because Max figuratively
Dang.
literally
City
poops
Burns.
on Philadelphia as much as he can? Because that is a great guess.
I thought it was Nissan
The Raiders.
Stadium, Tennessee.
Nissan.
Yeah.
No, okay. So, Alvin, after round 1, you have 26 points. Max, you have 24.
All right.
Wow.
Yeah, close game.
There we
Run,
go.
run.
Here we go. Into round 2, gentlemen. The top 10 highest paid athletes include their earnings from their salaries for the year, bonuses, prize money for making, playoffs, whatever, endorsements, and licensing income before taxes and agents' fees.
Yeah. So first one, I'm going to go with Mo Salah.
You're going to go with who?
Mo Salah. So
He is not on the list.
All right.
What?
Incorrect. He's not on the list.
Let's hit him with soccer. Let's go Neymar. Let's see where he's at.
Neymar is number 3, Alvin. Good job.
dang, I don't even see him.
All right.
All right. Well, then Ronaldo.
Ronaldo
probably
is number
one.
1, Max.
Yeah.
that's
He has to be
tough.
number 1. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go golf. Let's go Scotty Scheffler. Let's see where he's at.
That's a great guess, Alvin. He is not on the list.
I was like, that is broke my
Lewis
heart.
Hamilton.
No, not on the list
What?
either.
Let's go Pat Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, number 10.
Makes sense.
That was low hanging fruit. You knew he was up there.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna go with Jordan Spieth.
Jordan Spieth, also not on the list.
Dang.
Let's hit him with some Steph. Let's see what Steph's at.
Stephen
Curry.
Curry is number 7 on the list. Total earnings per year, $98.9 million.
All right. Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant is on the list. He's at number 9.
Let's see about Giannis. He just restructured. I think he might be up there.
Giannis is number 8, Alvin. So Max,
All right,
you've
Phil
gotten 1 and 9 so far.
Phil Mickelson.
Not on the list.
Dang.
Let's stick
I feel
with
like-
guys that just got a bag. Bradley Beal.
No, way down.
I was gonna say, there's no way.
Yeah,
Bradley
way down on the
freaking
list.
Beal.
Let me just throw it out there. KD
There's
was there, why
0%
There-
chance
there's
Bradley
no.
freaking Beal
not?
is making me any money.
If Patrick Mahomes is number 10, Bradley Beal probably isn't even top like.
Yeah,
30.
50, 100 million.
You got some paper now.
We got number 1. Max got Cristiano Ronaldo making 136 million. We got Alvin got number 3, Neymar, 121 million. And then we got 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 7 is Steph, 8 is Giannis, 9 is KD, 10 is Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
So we're
let's
still
go.
missing 2, 4, 5, 6.
And it's the highest paid athletes this year, 2023, 2024, something like that.
Yes, as of
Okay.
May 10th, 2024.
All right, Messi.
Messi,
Messi.
number 2 on the list.
Okay,
Yes,
there we
Max.
go. There we go. Not on our list, but yeah. Okay, Messi. Let's go.
Yes.
All right. Let's go.
Yes.
Let's go LeBron.
LeBron is number 5.
So we got
Aaron
one.
Judge. Correct.
Incorrect.
What?
That was
Bryce Harper.
well. Who?
You said Bryce
Bryce
Harper.
Harper. Yeah.
No, incorrect.
Nah.
You
there's
guys
no
are
way.
missing 4 and 6 now. I'll give you a hint. If you think about who were in the top 3, number 4 is similar. Number
Wait, I don't even
6.
remember the top 3.
Number 6 is
Oh,
retired.
Number
Number six-
four. Number four.
Yeah.
Lucky number 4.
What's his name?
Max.
What's his name?
Max, come
Say
on.
it, Max.
You
You got it. You got it.
I know. Mbappe.
Yes, it is Kylian Mbappe.
Yeah,
Mbappe.
let's go.
Got it. Good job, kid.
Yeah.
I don't even have a guy in
You
my
don't have
head
it?
right now. Max, you got a chance. You got a chance, Max.
All right. I'm
I
just
put my
gonna.
thinking cap on and
I'm
short
gonna
shirt.
throw it out there.
Okay, what you got?
Floyd Mayweather.
No, incorrect.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
This,
Yeah.
okay, here's another hint. This guy is a sport that we have not gotten yet on this list.
He
It's
said
not
no
Okay,
soccer.
how about
Already
this?
got
Or
soccer.
How
golf,
about
golf. Oh, Tiger Woods.
Incorrect.
Dang.
Okay, here's another hint. He's won 20.
20.
He's won
Oh,
20
it's a
times.
tennis dude. It's a tennis dude.
Nadar. Rafael Nadar.
Incorrect.
Am I right though? Is it a tennis player?
Yes.
That's my Super Bowl, bro. I have no idea.
Yeah.
No,
No,
he's-
we
Guys,
have we talked
he's
about him?
retired.
Have
Rafael
we talked
Nadal.
it?
No, but he's sponsored by you. He was sponsored by Uniqlo at the end. Novak Djokovic actually had to beat him in order to take over the number 1 title in the entire world. He's retired. Guys, the most famous tennis player ever.
Venus
Really?
Williams.
There's no women on this
Yeah.
list, unfortunately.
Hey, we're going to get there one day. We're going to get there
Yeah,
one
we
day.
100% will.
Dog,
Okay, and it'll probably be
nothing.
Caitlin Clark.
Then you
Nothing
made
Really,
is
guys?
coming to the brain, bro.
Into right now. Guys, Roger Federer?
Yeah, I forgot about him.
Jesse, I've heard the name 5 times.
Okay, here we go. So now we're going to do these individually, all right?
Yeah, give me a minute. We'll
Okay.
put timer on it. I have a minute to guess all 10
Top 10 runs batted in baseball.
RBIs of all time.
All time.
Okay, so here we go.
All right, here we go. 1 minute on the clock.
Yeah, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah,
All right. So Hank Aaron, number 1.
number 1. Yep.
We're gonna go with Albert Pujols. He's in top 3.
He's number 2.
Number 2.
Yep.
Babe Ruth. He's probably up there.
He's number 3. Okay, one,
Yeah.
two, three, right off the bat.
Wow,
Jeez.
man.
Okay, here we go.
We'll go Barry Bonds. He's
Number
probably
5.
up
Yep.
there. Is Jim Thome up there?
No, he's not.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
Is Harmon Killebrew up there?
No.
Dang. Is Lou Gehrig up there?
Lou Gehrig's number 6. Yes.
Okay. What about Mike Schmidt? Is he up there?
No. Good guess. No.
No.
Oh,
What
final
about-
15.
I know. What about
15 seconds.
Mickey Mantle?
Mickey
Mantle,
Mantle.
is he up
Oh,
there?
think same like general time period of baseball. No.
I don't know. Duke Snyder.
No.
Luke. Willie McCovey. Oh,
No.
okay. That was
That
bonus
was
point.
time. That was time. But
That's time.
Willie McCovey is not on it.
Wow. All right.
So the top
How many did I
10.
get?
Wow. You got 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. I'm actually thoroughly impressed with you right now, Max. Holy mackerel.
I know baseball, baby.
that
I know it all.
crazy.
Let's go.
What in the heck?
Let's go.
Are you
Yo,
serious?
Yo,
Okay.
I throw out names that people haven't even heard before in years,
That
bro.
was crazy. Okay, so number 1, Hank Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is Albert Pujols. Number 3 is Babe Ruth. You got all those right. Number 4, which this one was interesting to me, Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So number
Yeah,
5 was
690.
Barry Bonds. Number 6, Lou Gehrig, which you got. Here is where I said same time period. Number 7 was Stan the Man Musial.
Yeah, that's a good
Number
one.
8 was Ty Cobb, which that one kind of surprised me. Number 9 was Jimmy Fox. Number 10 was Eddie Murray. Number 11 was Willie Mays. So
Willie
if
Mays.
you got Willie Mays, I probably would have given it to you because
Yeah.
my dad's favorite player ever. So
Goat.
Yep. All right. So that was the top 10 in baseball. All right, Alvin, for you, we're going to go in NFL history. You're going to give me the top 10 leaders and touchdowns.
Oh,
He's
man.
cooked. Look at this guy. He's
I can
so
also
cooked.
give you something easier. What do you want?
You need someone
No,
easier,
no,
mate.
let's go. Yeah, let's go right here. Let's do.
All right.
Top 10 passing touchdowns.
No, either way, I'm cooked because like I never really.
All right,
watched,
top 10
like, top
pass
10.
touchdown leaders.
Yeah. All right.
All right, so
pass touchdown.
QBs. 3, 2, 1.
Montana.
Not in the top 10. He's number 19.
What? Okay. Let's go. Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning is number 3.
Let's go. Don't make me laugh. Don't make me laugh. I'm trying to think like who would be. Montana. I just go Brady.
Yep, number 1. Famous quarterbacks.
Let's think of. Let's go Matty Ice just cause. Why not?
He's number 9.
Don't laugh, bro.
Oh, he's number 9. Oh,
What?
nice.
Pause. All right. Let's do quarterback that ever existed right now. Let's go Eli.
Number 10.
Do
We'll give you one last guess.
the finale.
Yeah, finale, because you're cooked.
I'm so quick. Let's go Patty.
Mate.
Let's go who?
Pat Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes. He's not even in the top 20.
Mate. Come on. There's at least one that you could throw in.
Yeah, all right. Go. Let's rattle them off.
Well, at least Dan Marino. I can't believe you didn't say his name.
Yeah. Dan Marino.
Steve
would be number
Young.
7.
Is he up there, Steve
No,
Young?
he's not up. He's not in the
He's
top
not.
10.
He's not.
So here we go. So
Is Warren Moon? What about Warren Moon?
no, he's number
okay.
16 actually.
16.
Number
Okay.
16.
Yep.
All right.
Okay,
what was
Alvin.
it?
So you got number 1, which was Tom Brady. Number 3, Peyton Manning. Number 9, Matt Ryan, and number 10, Eli Manning. Number 2 was Drew Brees. You got number 3.
That's
Number
a tough
4
one,
was
yeah.
Brett Favre. Number 5
Yeah.
was Aaron Rodgers. Number 6 was Phillip Rivers. And number
Oh,
8
Big
was Ben
Phil.
Roethlisberger.
Big Ben. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's
So-
tough. Wow. Yours were all recent people, and you had no
They're
idea.
all recent
Wow.
too, Loki.
Dang.
I was like,
I was going back to
saying
like the
all-
1900s, bro. I
was
was
saying
going
quarterback.
back
Yeah, that was
100 years
crazy.
ago. And
my
you
mom
hit,
said-
dude, these guys all played. You suck.
I was like, okay,
Dang.
total touchdown.
That's
and we
tragic.
switched it. I was like, all right, whatever.
That's
It was
tragic.
crazy
good
because they
effort.
were all quarterbacks we've seen in our lifetime minus Dan Marino, which is
No,
crazy.
they're all dogs too. 40%.
And all right, the final one, and I'm no hints for this or anything. We're going with the top 10 most valuable sports franchises in the entire world based on last year's ranking because this year's ranking hasn't come out yet. So the end
All
of
right.
2023 ranking.
We'll do a
of
1 minute.
Forbes.
What? We'll do
No,
1
it's
minute
for both
30.
of you.
Yeah, and so we'll go back and forth. Who can get the most in a minute 30?
Okay, back and forth
Yeah.
for a minute and 30.
We'll let Alvin go first whenever he's ready.
All right,
And then we'll
Alvin.
go back and forth. Bang, bang, bang.
All right, ready, set, go. Alvin, top 10.
Cowboys.
Number 1, good.
All right, Manchester United.
Manchester United is not on that list.
Dang. All right, 49ers, just to get it off the back. Yeah.
Yankees.
Yankees are number 2.
Dodgers.
The Dodgers are not on the list.
Patriots.
Oh,
Lakers.
number 4. Nice.
Lakers.
Lakers, not on the list.
Knicks.
Number 9,
Ooh, Celtics.
not on the list.
Manchester City.
Dang. Trying to think of
Shot
football
clock.
fans.
2 seconds.
All right.
1,
All right.
2.
Green Bay.
Say something.
Green
Green
Bay.
Bay,
Packers. Yeah.
No,
Liverpool.
no.
Wait, I got one. Okay, I got two. Hurry up!
Alvin,
Go. I'm just saying stuff.
All right, Barcelona.
no.
All
Close.
right, Real Madrid.
Yes. Number 10.
Oh, Max is cooking. Oh, we got 10 seconds. Let me throw a lollipop. The Dolphins. Max, finish us off.
Okay. Final one. I'm going to go with the Angels.
No. Going down the list, Alvin, you got number 1 right. The Dallas Cowboys. Then Max, you got number 2 right. The New York Yankees. So the Dallas Cowboys total franchise worth is $9.2 billion. The New York Yankees, $7.1 billion. Number 3 is the Golden State Warriors.
The Warriors.
Valued at $7 billion.
Wow.
Yes.
Jeez.
Max, you got number 4 right. The New England Patriots are also valued at just a tad bit under $7 billion. The Los
6.9.
Angeles Rams are number 5.
That makes
is
sense.
6.9 flat billion. The New York Giants are number 6 at 6.8 billion. The Chicago Bears are number 7 at 6.3 billion, which made me think the Bears haven't won anything in forever. They've not been good. How can they be worth that much? Why would the Bears be number 6 on this list? That surprised me. Or number 7 on this list.
They sell.
I guess they do sell. Number 8, Max, the Las Vegas Raiders at 6.2 billion.
Raiders? Really?
I was also
Yes.
going to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that one was interesting. Number 9, you got the New York Knicks, but also the New York Jets are also tied at 6.1 billion. And Max, you got number 10 at Real Madrid. So, Max, you smoked it today.
Yeah, you came through.
Absolutely flame cooked Alvin. And what
The
do you have to say for
RBIs
yourself?
I was gonna say the RBI ones, that was a cheat code, unfortunately for you, Alvin. I know baseball like that. I know history like that. There were a few names I thought Armin Killebrew. I thought that could have been a sneaky one, but unfortunate.
Yeah, that was good. I'm surprised you even pulled his name out of a basket. That was crazy.
Yeah. So it's just it's not your day, but it's like any other day. So it's never your day. So it's I guess a typical day for you. So that hey, I guess it is your day. And it's typically my day. So whatever.
As long as
It wasn't your day, but because it wasn't your day, that means it actually is your day. So you're welcome.
Gymnastics.
Another day in your life. Very nice.
All right.
Have fun.
Well, thank you, Pete. Thank you, Max. Alvin, we're getting you back at Max next week. And thank you all for tuning into the show on iHeartRadio Podcast, and YouTube. You want to know more sports madness in your life? We'll tune back in on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Subscribe to us on Sports Fluent Media on YouTube. And please rate, comment, download the show everywhere else. And next week, we'll be back with a lot more sports talk. So stay tuned. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and we'll see you right back here on the Sports Scene with Jesse Ough, presented by First Bet and Sports Fluent Media.